Okay. Okay, so good morning. Just a recap of what you already know, but the emphasis will be on how to teach and how to think and how to make your students think about the problem and the algorithm. So you won't find anything new, so in that sense it's light. Main ingredients of the talk will include, so we'll be talking about input size. So in different scenario, the input size, the meaning remains the same, but the way you look at it slightly different. Yeah. Then we'll look at iterative algorithms, and you're already familiar with the notion of iterative algorithms. I'll just give some connection between how to generally you would analyze iterative algorithms. So you will, when you analyze the resources used by the algorithm, you will generally be writing the summation of the series in some form. Then we'll be talking about some, there will be some notion of recursive algorithms. And recursive algorithms, generally if you are analyzing them, you will write recurrence to express the resources used. So allow me to use time in particular for resource. Then divide and conquer technique. So divide and conquer technique they can be implemented iteratively as well as recursively, as we'll see. And if we do it, if we write a corresponding iterative algorithm, the analysis will generally be in the form of a series. And if you write it as a recursive algorithm, the analysis will be generally in the form of writing a recurrence. So these are the problems. I hope it's visible. Visible to everybody? Okay. So some of the problems: computing the exponent function. I have just taken the base to be 3 just to emphasize that that's a small number. Okay. So compute 3 raised power n for large n. What is the input size? So what is the input size here? Large value of n. Okay. Well, what is the input size to store? If I say that my input is n, what is the input size? Number of bits it requires to store n, right? So how much space does it require? No, n is large. So I will also talk about the notion of what do you mean by large and small. So we say that a number is large if it cannot be stored in constant number of memory words. Okay. Let's suppose we are talking about an integer, and let's talk about a typical integer size would be what? Say 4 words. Okay. So what is the largest number that you can store in 4 words? Let's say some capital M. Okay. So if I have to store a number whose size is up to capital M, I can store it in one integer, 4 words, 4 memory words. That's constant. Okay. If I have to store, if I have a value from M to, let's say 2M, okay, then I need two such blocks of 4 memory words. Okay, right? And if I need 3M, I'll need 3 such blocks of memory. But as n grows, this number keeps growing. The number of blocks of those 4 words, that keeps growing. So it is no longer a constant. Okay, the input size is growing. And what is that? So something which cannot be stored in constant number of memory words. 2 is also a constant for me. 2 words is fine. 2 blocks, let me use the word 2 blocks of 4 memory words is constant for me. 3 blocks is constant for me. Okay. But if I want to allow n to grow as much as it can, then that is not constant for me. On the other hand, when I talk about the problem, I'll let you know where and what we mean by small numbers. So for this computing 3 raised power n, what is the input size? What is the input to this problem? If you look at this, this is typically this kind of a thing, right? Power function. So what is the input? How many blocks do I need to store 3? Just 1. So that's a constant. How many blocks do I need to store n? In terms of n, what is the... See, we express everything in terms of n, right? When we are talking about sorting problem, we say n log n. I'll come to that also. So here what is the, how many? Log n, right? So if that hypothetical situation, if that m was 2, okay, if that m was 2, then I will require something like log n to the base 2 number of bits or blocks of size 2 bits. Okay, so let's deal with the base 10. Suppose we are dealing with base 10. So if I have numbers, let's say 9, how many digits? 1 digit, right? 25, 2 digits. 326, 3 digits. So this is my defining my how many digits a number of, so how many, if this is what is my n? My n is 326. How many digits does it have? 3. So can I say it has it has these many digits, log n to the base 10? Can we say this? Okay, so that's an exercise. Binary, all of you understand, right? Binary you understand, base 10 you don't understand. Okay, so you take it from me. In short, let's say base anyway does not matter, we know, right? Base does not matter in log, so it takes about order log n space, order log n bits. Okay, let's put m is bit, that block size is 1 bit, so then it is log n, right? So the input size here is not n but log n. We are not talking about input, we are talking about the size of input. How many bits does it take to represent n? Simple question. How many bits does it require to store n? That everybody understands. We require log n bits to store n, right? So the input size is log n in this case, in the first case, and not n. N is the input, size of the input is log n. Then another problem that we'll look at is computing the square root of n, and just for simplicity we assume n is a perfect square. What is the input? Input is just n, right? So what is the size of the input? Again log n, right? Product of two large integers. That's another problem we'll look at. We'll see how we can multiply two large integers x and y, each consisting of n digits, and So again, what do we mean by large? By large, we mean the number of blocks that it takes is not constant, and instead of blocks I will use either binary or decimal digits. Okay, so ignore blocks, just understand binary and decimal. Suppose I have number x, which is an minus 1, an minus 2, a0, y is equal to bn minus 1, bn minus 2, b0. How many, what is the input size to store this? So, what is the input size? N. The input size here is n. You have to store n digits or n bits. So, you need n. Input size is n in this case, and so is here. Okay? Product of two polynomials each of degree n, or let's say n minus 1, let's call it n minus 1 with small coefficients. Okay, so let's see what is this. First of all, let me just give you an example of this. What is this? This is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 0, 4, 3, something like that. Similarly, y is 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 5, and 8, something like this. Right? This is what x and y they look like, kind of. Okay. We can do it. I'm not bothering about the base. Just what I feel was that the people were getting lost with the m thing. Those who are comfortable with binary and decimal, they can contact me and talk to me about the m thing. Okay, I can explain that later. So okay, so x and y looks like this, where each a0 is a single digit, a1 is a single digit. Each of these is a single digit, right? So each of them can be stored in a constant number of integer words, right? So each of these ai is a single digit and hence a small number. All right. Now let's look at a polynomial. Okay. Let's look at this polynomial. Now its coefficients. Can you see that these can be stored in one integer word? They all can be stored in one integer word, integer block or whatever you might want to call it. Okay. 1. So they can all be stored in one constant integer word. So they are all small. So the coefficients of a polynomial are small. What if they were large? Then you have to deal with it separately, right? Yeah. So why we need them to be small in this case, as we'll see, because if we have two integers which are small, we can multiply them in constant time. We have already said that this is a primitive operation. Multiplying two integers is a primitive operation. Adding two integers is a primitive operation. We have been saying it loosely, but there was always an assumption that your integer can be stored in an integer word. If you write a program, int x, int y, multiply x into y, you assume that x and y can be stored in a one single integer word, right? So that assumption was always there, without mentioning that x and y are small integers. So if they are small integers, they can be added in constant time, they can be multiplied in constant time, etc. But if they are not small, we cannot assume that they can be multiplied in constant time. We cannot assume that they can be added in constant time. If the number of digits in two integers is growing, it is allowed to grow as much as it wants, then its addition will take more time, right? How do we add? How do we add? Digit by digit. So more is the number of digits, more time it will take. Right? I'll go a little bit more further. So how does a computer or the architecture add two integers? Anybody? You have a full adder, a circuit consisting of full adder, then there is a carry from this thing. So even that is taking more time, right? It will depend upon the number of bits. But why do we say it's constant? Because eventually the number of bits it is taking is constant. 4 words means 16 for the 64. 64 units of some time, but 64. Constant. If you have to add two numbers which take more than one memory block, how does it do? It will have to do two memory reads, right? It will have to read a part of it once. If all of you are kind of familiar with some bit of double word at system programming, etc., etc., it will read, right? So as the number of blocks or number of digits grow, even the computer is taking more time to add. So you cannot assume that for large numbers, the two numbers can be added or multiplied in a constant time. Okay? So that's what the third one says. We want to multiply two large integers, and that time will not be constant. Okay? The last one says that we are assuming that the coefficients are small, so hence the multiplication of two constants we can assume to be constant. Multiplication of two coefficients we can assume to be constant. So please just try to appreciate this. So what is the input size in case of polynomial? You have a polynomial of degree n. How do you specify the polynomial? Let's say how do you specify a polynomial? By specifying its coefficients. With me? Okay. I'll go back to this and ask you, how do you read or how do you store a large integer in your program or computer? Somebody gives you a large input, large integer. How do you store it? You cannot say int x read x. It cannot be stored in one memory word, so you cannot do that. Int x read x, you can't do that, right? So what do? Then how will this input be specified? Exactly this way. It will specify digit by digit. Then you will store it wherever you want to store, array, linked list, etc., whatever. Clear? How will the input be specified for a large integer? If this is the integer, this is exactly how you will specify the input for a large integer. And each one of them is a small integer. Fine. So there is quite a correspondence between these two, large integer and a polynomial of the same degree with small coefficients, and we'll use it further.
Where the base is the x to the power n minus 1 x to the power minus 1. 395 maybe, then 3 into 10 to the power of 2 plus. I mean, it is a large integer.
Exactly. So what did she say? That this number can be viewed as, this is nothing but a raised power n minus 1 into 10 to the power n minus 1, okay, plus a n minus 2 into 10 to the power n minus 2 and so on. Yeah, so there is a correspondence. Okay. Now what are the other problems? Searching. What is the input? x1, x2, xn. So what is the input size? What is the input size?
The size of the list, how many
n into size of data type.
Okay, good. Good and not so good. So for example, data type is integer. Then what is the size of this input? Huh? Exactly. So if this is what we have been assuming all through. Xi is a small integer or number, any number. So input size is n. I am just like theta n if xi's are small. If xi's are not small, then this does not hold. And this is the assumption we have always been making while talking about searching and sorting and so on. And hence we take n as the input size. So be careful. It's not that whatever be the problem, whenever you see n is the input size. It's not like that. Just think about how much space does it take if it is small, and most of the times, unless otherwise stated, it is assumed to be small. Okay, if it is large, then it will be stated. Yeah. Sorting, same. Okay, let's see this problem. Computing the exponent 3 raised power n. We just for the sake of simplicity, we assume n to be a power of 2. That's all. I mean, so for all these problems, I will be talking about iterative algorithm. I may be talking about recursive algorithm. I will be talking about divide and conquer. I will mention about the iterative. I may not write it, and the recursive for the divide and conquer. So this is a very simple, actually I should have asked you to write this. So very simple algorithm. To compute 3 raised power n, I will compute 3 raised power n minus 1 into 3. I can write this algorithm as a iterative program. I mean, I can write an iterative algorithm for this as well as recursive for this. Iterative, all of you are with me when I say I can write an iterative as well as recursive? If you feel that, if you have any doubt that we cannot write recursive or we cannot write iterative, please let me know, because this is the simplest problem. Okay, so I assume you can write iterative algorithm for this, and so okay, let me just write. See, it may not be absolutely correct, may have some.
In this case, if n is large, then the product will also be large and will not be able to store it in a single variable.
Yeah, so those problems are handled in a different way. I'm not going into those complications. That is true. Yeah. But she says that the size of 3 raised power n could be large. The size of 3 raised power, the output of 3 raised power, the output size is 3 raised power n. So if you have to output 3 raised power n, the size of this could be n log 3, which is itself n, right? So you should keep in mind that though the input size we are saying is log n, the size of the output could be big. Yeah. So you should.
Factorial also, most of the time I think after 10 factorial, the 2 widths,
Yeah, those are practical issues. Yeah, right. Yeah. So in fact, with my class I do modulo also. To answer this question, we do 3 raised power n modulo some number, and yeah. So I'm not going into the detail. I'm just keeping it simple. Yeah, but your question is valid. So this is something like product is equal to 1, and then okay. Yeah, that's the iterative version of this. And how do I write? If I have to analyze, how do I analyze? If it is an iterative algorithm, while analyzing, the first thing you should say is in the ith iteration, what does it do? In the ith iteration, how much time does it take? Huh? So this is my algorithm, and I will say in the ith iteration, it takes constant time. That is order 1, let's say C. Correct? So how much, if T represents the time to compute 3 raised power n, then this is equal to what should come here? C. In each iteration you are taking the same amount of time. It is kind of independent of I. Okay. Now what is this? What is this? Cn. I am adding Cn times. I am just adding Cn times. So it is Cn. So it's order n. We can write a recursive algorithm. What will be the recursive algorithm? Power 3 for n. If n is equal to 0, return 1, else return 3 into power 3 comma n minus 1. Yeah, same algorithm, basically same approach I can write. Analysis. So I'll erase this. That was my algo 1. What do you do? Tn is equal to plus C. Tn minus 1 plus C. Right? Tn minus 1 plus C. So what do you get? Expand it, you get the same series. We have seen the expansion of recurrence relations. If you expand it, you get the same series. I am not doing this again, and you get Cn, which is order n. Sorry, I can't see. Yeah, so basically that assumption is not required so far. The assumption that n is a power of 2 is not required for the this version, not so far. Okay, when I do divide and conquer, it will be required there. So fine so far? Okay, so I ask one question which is going towards implementation. From implementation point of view, theoretical point of view, they are same. Both of them take Cn time, order n time. Okay? From implementation point of view, which one should be preferred? Why? Yeah, so there is some constant there is an overhead in calling a function. Constant though, but absolute time to you will spend more, right? So for problems which are as simple as this, you should not use recursive algorithms. Okay? So you spend time in context switching, etc., and so space also is taken.
Even at the end, you might end up blowing up the side space. You have to remember everything.
Yeah, so exactly. So you need to store everything in stack. The recursion will store everything in stack. So that length would be that space. You are using some extra space as big as order n, theta n, as big as theta n. Space is being extra space is being used. Extra time is being used. Okay. So for problems as simple as that, you should not use recursion. Okay, so next we look at the divide and conquer. We can compute 3 raised power n by computing 3 raised power n by 2 and multiplying it with another 3 raised power n by 2.
The first one is also not divide and conquer because we have split the problem into small.
No, not really. See, then every iterative algorithm you can think as recursive. So it's not really, I mean, it's not divide and conquer at least.
Because the necessity should be bigger. Like when we say divide and conquer, the use of this should be of bigger size. It is necessary. Because normally we say that we divide means that we have to split it into smaller parts so that it can be solved. But this have to be big enough, both of them or all of them.
Honestly speaking, if you look at it carefully, we are not dividing it. We are reducing it. We are reducing it to a smaller problem. We are not dividing it into one problem of one size and the other problem of n minus 1 size. So you're not actually dividing it. You are only reducing the problem size. You can think about it. It's so from that point of view, if you think, then every iterative algorithm will reduce to divide and conquer. So okay, so not necessarily binary. I mean, I won't say it's necessarily binary, but that is not actually divide and conquer. That is actually doing it one by one. We are doing it one by one. When we are doing something one by one, it is iterative. Right? Okay, divide and conquer. So this is this. Now if you have to write, so let's do the time analysis first and then we'll see the implementation, because time analysis largely can be done independent of implementation. Sometimes it depends on implementation also. So what is the time? if Tn is the time to compute 3h per n, then Tn is equal to Tn is equal to you will compute it only once and use it. That's why I didn't give the implementation. Yeah, you will compute 3 raised power n by 2 only once and reuse it. So it is Tn by 2 plus some constant.
In this case, if the Gaussian, then it will compute it both sides will be computed again. Understand to use dynamic programming.
No, we'll see. We'll see. No, we'll not need anything like this. Login time? Yeah? So we have improved from n to login. Now let's look at the iterative as well as recursive version of implementation. So let's do the recursive first. Oh, sorry. There's just one value you have to remember. If you have to remember several values, then you have to use array or something like that. आप लोगों को visible है इधर? Why don't you come to this side? Okay. No, it's okay. You come from that side. Otherwise, you'll be. So, fine. Just one value. So you don't need anything like that. And now you can see that, right? Fine. Was it easy to write or not? Okay. Now I give you 5 minutes. Try to write a iterative version of this. Something like this. Try it, then you can come back to this. Oh, I should not have erased that. So how many of you have been able to write? 1, 2. Okay. So it's okay. How many of you would have been able to write this? If I gave you this formula, how many of you think would be able to write this? The recursive version. Recursive version. Raise your hands. How many of you think that you would have been able to write this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So quite many, right? Quite many. And so only of that, only 2 of them have been able to write this. 2, 3, 4, right? Okay. All right. So that itself shows that it was difficult to write an iterative algorithm and it was easier to write a recursive algorithm. Same formula, same notion. Writing a iterative, though even in this case even iterative is simple, though it also has problems. Okay, so you have written, what have you written here?
For I is equal to 1 to n by 2.
Sorry?
I is equal to 1 to n by 2.
N by 2, no, that's not correct.
For I is equal to 1 to n by 2, then temp is equal to temp into 3. After that for loop, temp is equal to temp into temp.
You have 2 loops?
No, only one loop.
Your loop?
After for loop, I have execute for loop, I is equal to 1 to n by 2.
No, that's not correct, no. If you run a loop, for loop from 1 to n by 2, you have already spent n by 2 time.
N by 2 time, after that for loop, I have multiplied temp into temp, that is stored.
The first for loop cannot run from I is equal to 1 to n by 2. Yeah? Oh, you are multiplying 3 with itself and
After that, I have multiplied.
no. So yeah, so that is already taking, so that's almost like iterative. That I mean that's almost like the first one. Instead of n, you are using it to compute n by 2 and then using that. So who else? Something similar? Log n, right? Now, how do you compute log n? You'll have to use some log function, etc., right? Well, there may be other ways to do it, but I don't know. Huh?
While you use that,
While what?
this n is greater than 0 और उसको reduce करते हैं, divide by 2 divide by 2.
Okay. So that gives you the number of iterations. So what she is doing is, while n is greater than 0, equality does not matter, so we will not get into that. While n is greater than 0, so this is not used anywhere. Yeah, you can use temporary variable so that n is not affected, but idea is this. So this is only, see, this is not used in computation. This is only being done to keep a counter how many times we have run the loop. So it is basically computing that log n for you. Yeah? So already complicated. Of course, this is the simplest problem, so it's not so complicated, but it's definitely complicated, more complicated than its recursive counterpart. So what's the advantage of, what is the advantage of writing recursive functions as compared to their iterative counterpart? Easy to implement, right? Easy to design, easy to think of, right? Easy to think of, easy to design, easy to implement. Now let's prove the correctness of this and the correctness of this. If you have to convince somebody, one person writes this implementation, another person writes this implementation, you have to convince somebody that your algorithm is correct. You have to convince somebody that your algorithm is correct. How do you go about it? So it's definitely much easier to convince. I'm not saying proof. I'm not saying proof. Proof you'll have to do by induction, but convince. Okay? So it's definitely easier to convince somebody that this is correct. What it says, compute 3 raised power n by 2, store it in this and then multiply it with itself. It will compute 3 raised power n. Now this, how do you convince? It's difficult to convince, right? You need some mathematics. Yes, n is equal to n by 2 करेंगे तो ये log n time चलेगा, और अगर ये log n time चलेगा तो ये पहले 3 square compute करेगा, फिर 3 to the power 2 square compute करेगा and so on. So that kind of argument will be required, which may be convincing, but not immediately, not in flip of the finger. It will take a little while to convince. So easy to convince, easy to see the correctness of the algorithm. Okay? Time is same in both. Why? Let's see the time. How much time here? We have already seen. For this we have to write recurrence, right? Recursive algorithm translates into recurrence, and that's all the more easier. So this is easy, very easily translates. Here again you have to see that by doing this it will run for log n iterations. So once you have convinced that it runs for log n iterations, the rest follows. So you'll have to say in ith iteration we would have computed 3 to the power 2 to the power I and so on and so forth. Okay? So every iteration takes constant time, that we can see. But how many iterations is a big question here. Yeah? So proving the correctness is easy to design, easy to implement, easy to analyze, easy to prove the correctness. Okay? But still use it with caution. Use it with caution. You should not use it to implement that 3 raised power n minus 1. There you are not gaining anything by writing a recursive algorithm. Iterative is as simple as recursive. Recursive might be more difficult there in the first case. Okay? So basically the iterative version is a bottom-up implementation, and iterative is a bottom-up implementation. You first compute 3 square, multiply 3 square with 3 square, you get 3 to the power 2 square, then multiply 3 to the power 2 square with 3 to the power 2 square, you get 3 to the power 2 cube. So it's a bottom-up thing, and this is a top-down. Recursive algorithm is a top-down thing. So again, for simplicity we assume for this problem that n is a perfect square. We don't want to get into the complication of what happens if it is not. Iterative, how do you compute square root n? How do you compute square root n? Absolutely brute force. What do? You try all numbers starting from I is equal to 1, 2, 3 and just check if their square is n. Yeah? Fine. So that will take how much time? Order n, because in each, so how do you analyze? In the ith iteration, so what is the algorithm? let's say n or n by 2, whatever, doesn't really matter. Don't compute square, otherwise just say this. Right? Yeah? So when you analyze this, how do you say? In the ith iteration, whenever you are analyzing an iterative algorithm, always mention the running time of its ith iteration in terms of I, even if it is a constant. If it's a constant, say c. If it is some function of I, say it is I or I minus 1 or whatever it is, I log I, whatever you want to say. And then say I is less than or equal to n for simplifying the expression. Okay, because this is a common problem that we see. In the ith iteration, it is just checking this, right? This is the only time it is spending. How much time? Constant time, right? So Tn is equal to C I growing from 1 to n by 2. If n by 2 is bothering you, just make n. I just used some, what is it, Cn. Now for the divide and conquer algorithm, just think about something. The hint is it's something like binary search. Okay. Right. So you have you can imagine that you have 0, 1, 2, up to n. In the iterative, what did we do? We just checked one by each of these one by one. Okay. So in divide and conquer, what you will do? You will divide it at the middle point. Okay. And whatever is the middle point, say let's call it mid of I. In the ith iteration, suppose it is mid. If mid into mid is equal to n, then we return mid. Okay, I'm just skipping those things. Okay, let me just. Else, if then where should we search for it? Second half. Okay, search for the square root in second half, else first half. This is exactly same as binary search, though I have not yet talked about binary search, so I'm assuming that. So, how many of you have seen? Is there anybody who has not seen binary search? I have not done it, so it's my duty to ask. So, all of you have seen recursive form of binary search. Is there anybody who has not seen the recursive form of binary search? Have you seen the iterative form of binary search? So is there anybody who has not seen the iterative form of binary search? I'm sure there will be some people who have not seen both. So anyways, so the same algorithm you have, since everybody is admits that you know the iterative as well as the recursive version of that, I assume that you can apply the same here. So so we can write iterative as well as recursive version. So if you remember that I'll do it when I come to binary search explicitly. So the binary search, recursive binary search is again easier to write, easier to design, you can think of it, easier to design, easier to write, easier to convince that. Of course you need some arguments, little bit of argument, sometimes more complicated. Here what do you need? What argument do you need to prove the correctness? What argument do you need to claim that if this is less than n, then the square root cannot lie in this? Because if j is any element less than I, then j star j will be less than I star n, I which is less than n. So it cannot lie in this. So these kind of small arguments of course you will need, and hence so there are certain things which are visible trivially, but you should these nuances we must not ignore, we must write them down. So easy to prove correctness, and then let's see the analysis. What's the time? What is the time? So Tn is equal to Tn by 2 plus 1. We are searching only one half. We are searching only one half and not both the halves. I'm going a little slow, so what do you want? I mean, if the tea has come, then we can take a break and I can continue next time. Otherwise, so let me just start, and then we can see. So multiply. Yeah, I'm not going into those complications. Yeah, I'm not, you can say for the timing, yes, we are not going into those complications. Just the ideas are important and complicated. So we'll shift, the focus will shift from what I want to convey. So now let's look at an algorithm for multiplying two large integers, each of n digits. Okay, so how do you multiply two integers? If you have to multiply 2, 3, 4, 5 by 6, 7, 8, 9, how do you multiply? Successive add and shift, right? Multiply, shift and add, right? So it will be something, 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 maybe 5 digits, then this is how we do, right? So this is successive add and shift algorithm. How much time does it take if we have n digits here and n digits here? N square, huh? To add these two it will require n, then whatever is the result, to add this will require another n number of additions, and this way we'll have about n minus 1 additions. N minus 1 addition, each taking n time, so this will be order n square, theta n square. You can say theta n square. What is the size of the product? What's the maximum size of the product? 2n plus 1, okay. So order, yeah, something like 2n plus minus 1, plus 1. Now we can reduce this to, we can reduce this time with the help of divide and conquer algorithm. So this, what you will see now is something little bit new. So suppose the two numbers are this. We split the numbers into roughly two halves. Let's again, we can assume n to be a power of 2 to make it simple. So we divide it into two halves and we write it as this. Look at this. Yeah? Can we write this number as this? Okay, let's see an example. So 2, 3, 4, 5 and 3, 8, 5, 4. I split it. My x naught is the rightmost block, rightmost half. The right half is my x naught, left half is my x1. So x naught is 45, x1 is 23, y naught is 54, y1 is 38. Yeah? I am writing x as x1, x naught, y as y1, y naught. Yeah, and so let's look at this. We can write this as this, right? 23 into 100 plus 54. Right? We can write this as 23 into 100 plus, 45. And y as 38 into 100 plus 54. Right? Simple. And so the power is 2, which is n by 2, n is 4, and in general you can write it like that. Okay. So if you will multiply this xy, just multiply this, we will get what? x1 y1 into 10 to the power n plus x1 y naught. This is nothing new. This is nothing but this successive addition. This is same as this, right? Assume n to be equal to 2, you will know. Let's see. Take n is equal to 2. You want to multiply 45 into, let's say, 59. What do you do? So the claim is that this is 20 into 10 to the power 2 plus 9 4 is 36 plus 25 into 10 plus 5 is 45. Just verify this. Verify this whether this multiplication is this or not. This is a 2-digit multiplication, you can verify quickly. Nine fives are 45. 5, 36. You can verify this as true. I am assuming for simplicity, in general, otherwise you can pad the number. Okay, so you take it from me and verify it at home. So this is for 2-digit number we have done the verification. This will be difficult to do it here, so that's why said. So what is that? We want to compute x1, y1. So what is the algorithm? What is the algorithm? Algorithm says n digits, so when you add them, it is not constant, it will take some order n time. Okay? So to add these two terms, we need order n time, and we have reduced the problem of multiplying we have reduced the problem of size n to 4 problems of size n by 2. Now tell me the recurrence. Exactly. Exactly. So, Mansi, you raised one of the questions when I was doing alpha beta. So, what if how can alpha plus beta be greater than 1? So, here is an example where the new problem, if you look at the total size of the problem, is greater than 1. There we had 2 terms of recurrence, here we had 4 terms, but the total size of the problem is more than n. This was n. The total size of the problem is more than n. That can happen, right? That can happen. Now what is the solution to this? You can apply Master's theorem and you get n square. Okay? So what have we achieved? We had an iterative algorithm which ran in n square time, and this is also divide and conquer. We are doing recursion, but we are still spending n square times. Then why should we use this? Okay, so we'll see that by one more step, careful look at it, we'll reduce this 4 to 3. Instead of solving 4 problems of size n by 2, we'll solve 3 problems of size n by 2. Done? Okay. Ready? Okay, I'll just finish. So, instead of 4 problems of size n by 2, we'll have 3 problems of size n by 2. Okay. For that, we'll just use some clever maths. See, this is the term that we needed, this middle term x1 y naught plus y1 x naught. यही चाहिए थी ना हमें? x1 y naught plus y1 x naught चाहिए था हमें. If you look at this, we don't need them individually. We don't need this individually. We want their sum, right? So when we were doing this, we were computing them individually and then compute the sum. Okay, now we'll do a clever thing. We'll add x0 and x1 and we'll add y0 and y1 and compute this expression, which is the right hand side. We are anyway spending time on computing x1, y1. We are anyway spending time on computing x0, y0. So if from this we will subtract x1, y1 and x0, y0, we will get the middle term. So we have reduced 2 problems to 1 problem. Instead of computing x1, y0 separate, y1, x0 separate, I will compute x0 plus x1 into y0 plus y1. Just take a little while to grasp this. या ठीक है, तो हम x1 y0 अलग से और y1 x0 अलग से नहीं करेंगे, क्योंकि उसमें हमें 2 इंस्टेंसेस कंप्यूट करने पड़ते हैं. उसकी जगह हम एक इंस्टेंस कंप्यूट करेंगे. द टाइम स्पेंट इन कंप्यूटिंग x0 प्लस x1 इज एडिशनल टाइम विच इज लीनियर. y0 plus y1 additional time linear, that will go into our plus n term, but 4 instances of size n by 2 we have reduced to 1 instance. So we have reduced it by 1. So what recurrence do we get? 3 Tn by 2. And that gives us a reduction. So this is one of a very good sophisticated implementation application of divide and conquer. Whatever I did before that was an easy stuff. This is something similar to, if you have seen, how many of you have seen Strasson's multiplication? Yeah, so the ideas are kind of similar. Sorry? This is? No, I don't think so. Which, I didn't get it. Which name? No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know of at least. Right? So we have been able to make a progress over the iterative version. So I'll stop here. We'll just quickly see after the tea break that multiplying 2 polynomials of degree n is absolutely same. I have already given the correspondence. Okay, so that then we will shift to search. Okay.